Hi, everyone. I'm Sanara Bailey, President and CEO of the Sister Group, and we'd like to welcome you to the kickoff hangout for our 2015 Best Practices for Youth Conference. We're really excited to be able to bring this conference back. We took a break off last year, and we have a great team that has planned wonderful content and a great learning environment for the next 3 days. So given that, I'd like to share and introduce a few members of the team who will be joining me for today's conversation. I'll let each of them just introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they've done for preparing for the conference or what committee they served on. So why don't we start, I guess, on my left visually, which would be Katie. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Katie Hesse-Sloniker, and I'm a SISG intern from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm on the Y4C committee, which is the Youth for Change Day committee, which happened yesterday. What I've done to prepare is we worked a little bit on curriculum and developing ties with youth organizations around the United States, and we worked a lot on marketing and working again with youth and understanding perspectives on diversity.
Great. Thanks, Katie. And to, I guess, her left, or visually my left, Jimmy Doherty.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Doherty. I'm a CSG intern from Maryland. I am from the Y4C Change, which is Youth for Change committee. What I did was working with Andrea and Katie to come up with a curriculum on youth diversity perspective topics. It happened yesterday, and we were so excited about it.
Great. And the next person would be Christian.
My name is Christian Kelly. I'm from the booming metropolis of Winchendon, Massachusetts. I am a SISG intern, and I was on the marketing, well, currently am still on the marketing and research committee. I've been doing social media, raising some awareness about the event, reaching out to potential clients in emails, and hyping it up.
Great. And last but definitely not least, Andrea.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Summerlin. I'm a SISG intern located in Walport, Oregon. I, too, was a member of the Youth for Change committee, and as my colleagues mentioned, we worked a lot with networking with community partners, building those networks, and building a great curriculum for everyone to use, and also blasting it on social media.
Great. So we've had about 8 months of planning to get us to this point, and this conference, as many of you who may have heard of it or have attended in the past know, it builds out of our idea around capacity building and sharing of best practices. One of the things that the Sister Group is really focused on is building the capacity of individuals, groups, and organizations to create lasting social change. And one of the things that we've noticed over years, particularly with youth development, is there's great things happening across the country. So there might be a wonderful mentoring program in one country or one part of the country. There might be a great tutoring program in another part, but they're not necessarily sharing that information. And it's very hard for individuals to come to conferences, to travel, to find the resources, and every nonprofit will tell you they don't have enough money to do the things that they need to get done. And so this conference built out of that. It's an opportunity for people to hear about what's working across the country, to hear from their peers who are doing this type of work, to see kind of what they've done to solve the issues that are affecting young people under the age of 25 without having to spend a huge amount of money. We offer scholarships, we provide discounts for groups that will send more than one person, and so it's really an affordable option for professional development. I'd like to just talk a little bit about what will occur over the next couple of days and what did already happen when we started the conference yesterday. So as 3 of the members of my conversation this morning mentioned, we had the Youth for Change Day was the kickoff. And the Youth Day comes out of a desire to have young people involved in this work and to give them a chance to have a voice in the work that organizations are doing around youth development. So I'll let Katie and Jimmy and Andrea tell you a little bit about the curriculum they developed, what the plan was for August 3rd, and kind of what ended up happening and where we are today and how you can find out about it. So any of you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. So there were actually 4 of us. We have a 4th member, Miss Jessica Hernandez, who graduated from the USC program, and we started meeting about 8 months ago. And we decided that there were a lot of contemporary issues going on right now in American society, a lot of media reports about the issue of diversity. And we really felt that it was kind of one-sided, that it really only talked about racial diversity, and we felt that it was much broader than just race. And so that's how we came up with our theme from talking and brainstorming a lot amongst ourselves. We said, let's try to use this platform to discuss with youth across the nation about the broader perspective of diversity. And so we created Broadening Our Perspective on Diversity. And it included topics about mental health and diversity, about socioeconomic status and diversity. It included transgendered discussions and diversity, and homelessness, as well as multiracial, multicultural persons in the United States in the future. And what we decided to do is we decided to gear all of our discussions to topic material that related to high schoolers. And so everything we used, the worksheets, the videos, the questions that we asked, were all actually from the perspective of a high school student telling their story.
Great. Andrea, Jimmy, would you like to add anything to what Katie said?
Yeah, Katie did completely said everything, but the way we did it, we tried to divide the work, like everybody were assigned to do certain work, like to make everything easy, and then everything neat as a way to make the curriculum the way we would love to present it.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to mention is that what we wanted to stress was that sometimes youth are often discounted due to their age or just due to their lack of life experiences, but we wanted to really promote that they can become engaged in their local communities. They can be catalysts for change, for positive change regarding any number of issues, but we were focusing on diversity. But we just really want people to be able to use our curriculum to promote kids to get out there and make positive change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, too often it's kind of organizations providing services to young people and not including their voice. And so that's such an important part of the day. The other piece is you all really incorporated a lot of things that are accessible. There was, every bit of the curriculum you can find online. You don't have to have any necessarily special skills to run their curriculum. And it integrated social media, which for young people, particularly high school students, I think they're much more savvy than any of us are, and they want to communicate through mobile devices and through Instagram and through Twitter. And so making this conversation not just sitting in a room presentation style in the way that maybe we do professional development in our organizations, but to really make this an accessible program for young people where they are willing to share and talk about things related to diversity. And I love the idea that we're broadening. I think too often there's kind of a one-dimensional conversation around diversity, and so building out of all these different lenses, all these different perspectives around this topic, and really giving the young people a chance to reflect. It builds on the other conversations we've had. There's the first Youth Day, we talked about ideas around femininity and masculinity and gender identity and how young people feel they're represented around their gender. And I think just building on that conversation with what you all have planned for this year, it shows the growth of what can be done around this program. So there was a great conversation yesterday. If you missed it, you can check out YouTube or go to the APYD Google Plus page and see Andrea and Katie sharing exactly how to use the curriculum in your program or organization. Would one of you like to share where else they can find the information and the details related to implementing this program?
They can go to www.youth4change youth.siskigroup.org.
Great. And the 4 is the number, so it's youth, the number 4, change. And Siski is SISGI group.org. Thank you. So building out of that, we do a question of the day every day in the conference. It's a chance for those of you that aren't necessarily participating in the workshops to join us on social media to discuss a topic relevant to something that's being presented in the conference or the general themes that are coming out. As we've talked about, broadening our perspectives on diversity was the theme for the Youth Day. And so today's question is, considering today's political climate, is it more important to surround yourself with those who think like you and build strength in numbers, or to reach out to befriend those with views in opposition to yours? So should you collect and gather with everyone who thinks just like you and build an army to take on the problem, or is it better to reach across the aisle, to seek diverse perspectives and understanding? I think, personally for me, one of the things that's been very fascinating over the last couple of months is how people talk on social media when they feel they're in an insular kind of everybody who thinks like me conversation. I've stumbled upon pages or stumbled upon a conversation because of comments in the feed, and I'm shocked. I really have to say, even though I know racism exists, I'm not, blinded by kind of the state of the nation, but people in my network would never say those things to my face. It's just kind of how we act. We might joke about something, or we might say something in the company of friends that we would never say in a professional setting or in a mixed setting. And so since the kind of situations that have happened more recently around police and the African American community and just all the things that are kind of happening right now, there's quite a bit going on. I've stumbled onto different pages and different comments, and I really am shocked. And I do think there is something to be said about knowing what people are saying about you behind your back, kind of thing, so that you know kind of what are their arguments, what are the things that they feel empowered to say are wrong, are negative, in opposition to what you believe. Because I think if you hear the same things, after a while you get kind of maybe passive, and you don't necessarily learn how to not necessarily argue, but to fight their beliefs or fight their perspective. Because I think, one of the things we talk about in this internship is that we all have our lens. We all see the world in a particular way. And, I assume that everybody thinks like me because my perspective is my perspective, but that may not necessarily be true. And so if I can see the world through somebody else's lens and understand how they come to that same result, it gives me a little bit, personally, I believe, it gives me more power to argue, to defend, and to really address the concerns that they have in a way that makes sense to them, rather than trying to get them to come across to my side in my lens, understand their lens, and then force my opinion. So what do you all think about that? Should you build the army of the same, or should you learn to see and understand what others think?
I believe in diversity. I always think it's always good to connect with other people with different views. It will help you gain more knowledge, and then help you grow. Especially if we live in diversity country, we have to assimilate to different culture and learn from them. So you born in a culture, you understand people. It maybe it's better to expand your knowledge and then maybe be friends with certain people from different culture. Maybe you can learn something from, because that's how we learn. We learn by hearing what others say, by sharing different culture. Like that's how we know how food tastes like, by trying different dishes. So I believe like it will be benefit for me to get out of my comfort zone and then be friends with other culture.
Absolutely. I think definitely, particularly if we're in the United States, we're a country, a very diverse country, and there's no one way of looking at things in this nation. And so the more you understand difference, I think it does make you a better citizen. It makes you more informed and more able to really interact with your neighbors. Others?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Christian. I agree with Jimmy. It's important to kind of listen to other viewpoints and understand where maybe somebody else's life experiences has shaped the way they view something. And, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, it's human nature to want to be around maybe people that see things the same as you, but on the other hand, it's important to, in order to get things done, to listen to other viewpoints and learn from each other and grow both personally and professionally. So I see where it's a great value to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our society today, we've kind of lost the art of actually listening. There's so many times that people talk and have conversations, and I do it too, you're already formulating in your head exactly how you're going to respond before the person's even done talking. So even if we all just took like one breath after somebody completes a sentence and then formulate our response and then say, well, this is how I feel, or the other great one is, in my experience, because that makes it personal to you, your experience isn't going to be the same as everybody else's. And I also think that, like going even back to the last presidential election, people were so polarized by, you know, which candidate they were going to vote for, or, you know, if they were a Republican or a Democrat. It would be interesting to see how many people actually understand what the difference is, and then hold those conversations around. Sometimes we're just not aware of the facts and aware of our platforms are, and we're so interested in those labels that we miss out on golden opportunities to really get to know each other and to come up with innovative solutions to all the problems that plague our society today.
Right. And I think, you know, you brought up a really good point. Sometimes people they're so embedded in what they believe, they're not even really listening or thinking about what others might think. You know, it's just, I'm a Democrat, or my communities are bad, or those people act a particular way, and this is why it's happening to them. Rather than saying, okay, if we remove what I believe or think is true, and I take a moment to just look at this in my experience. So if I try to understand what it's like to be a Republican, or what it's like to be an independent, and what do they actually believe? What are the differences that might be? What are the values that they might hold? What are the things that, you know, for instance, when we talk about like the immigration debate in the country, almost every single person in this country can trace their roots, if we really dig deep, to someplace else. And so instead of thinking about it today and what happens, maybe think about it in terms of your grandparents or your great-grandparents and what their journey to this country might have been like. And what would you have wanted for the people who were already here to say and to welcome and to think about it, instead of necessarily looking at it through, again, your lens, your perspective of the day, trying your best to frame it in a way that you can relate to. And I think just to the point of the question, kind of befriending those with views in opposition, the more you get to know someone who's different, the less they become the stereotype, the less they fall into those people categories, because you have this person who doesn't fit that. They're your friend. They're someone you care about, you know, and that makes it harder to just label and keep everybody in that box. The more you get people who break down those stereotypes that you already have, or the prejudging that you're doing, I think it's harder to maintain that. Doesn't mean it goes away. I think people kind of always will prejudge and discriminate, but I think it might make you pause before you blatantly put it on Facebook, which drives me crazy. I just can't take that. What do you all think about that part?
Well, I kind of go along the lines of Christian, where I believe that, you know, again, without listening to somebody else's perspective, innovation can never happen. Now, when it comes to social media, I do believe people think, oh, you know, this is just a box. I'm just communicating with the box. And they don't realize that they're communicating with the universe. And, you know, there's that old saying that they always say, would you have said that if it was, if your mom was sitting there with you? Would you have said that if you were sitting face to face with that person? That's always the true test to make sure whether you should say something or not, or how you should frame something. I mean, everyone knows that writing is actually not the most eloquent form of communicating personal feelings and things. You have to be face to face with somebody to really truly be able to get the full effect of what somebody's saying. And so again, putting something in 144 characters just cannot be done, and to be able to eloquently state something that you believe in a way that is inclusive, or it allows for those that are not sitting there with you to see your full view and your perspective.
Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to kind of take that and remove the context of it, and make it an isolated comment, which can make it kind of skew either way.
Yes.
Anyone else want to add any final thoughts about the question of the day?
I think another thing, and getting back into the whole theme of diversity, I listened to a podcast called The Art of Charm. They had a really interesting conversation with a gentleman who's transgender. He was born a woman and went through he called it his rebranding process, and he's coming out with a book. But the host of the podcast said, in this podcast I'm going to sound very ignorant because I am. And I think that we get away from the point of it's okay to not know anything, but making those assumptions is what really drives people apart. And we need to be open to the fact that, as a white male, I have no idea what it is to be an African American female. And so I'm not going to make judgments about, anybody that lives their life a different way than me until I get to know those facts. And I need to be able to ask those questions and have those conversations, no matter how tough and uncomfortable they are. And that can only happen through, breaking your own personal boundary and breaking your own kind of personal bubble and getting out there and actually meeting people, no matter, what their race, socioeconomic status, religion, nationality, anything like that.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point, Christian. And it even goes beyond just, my experience as a Black American woman, and there might be someone else. I think we talked about this once in either group supervision that, Jimmy and I are both Black women, but our lived experiences are different. And so you want to get to know Jimmy, and you want to get to know Thanera and see what that may mean. Not to just assume that because of one factor that might be exactly the same, that we have the same ideas or views or perspective. And it is so important to have those conversations. I think people have gotten kind of fearful about race. Either they want to act as though we're post-racial, so I don't need to talk about race anymore, or they're scared that if they bring something up, it'll be perceived a particular way, when if you can really be open and honest, and I think that point that the podcast interviewer that you mentioned saying, like, hey, I know I don't know what I'm talking about, help me to be better informed so that I don't make ignorant comments, that I don't say things that are inappropriate. And I think it goes to that point within the question of the day about befriending people. Actually getting to know people, individually people, will help you to learn more about how to communicate with people who are different than you, which can be a variety of things, not just, the things that we know kind of big like race and class and gender, but just that lived experience, that being raised by a particular family, experiencing something in a particular way. There's privileges that we all experience on a day-to-day basis that set our view in particular ways. And so the more that we know about each other, whether that's on an individual basis, on a group basis, on a large nationwide basis, the more informed and the less kind of problems we'll see, which is one of the things that makes that curriculum that, just to bring it all back, that the youth team has created so great, because it is a very broad discussion, and it allows young people to talk about it from their perspective. It's not putting a label on them and saying, tell us about what it's like to be Black American and female. It's tell us what it is how do you view this conversation? How do you understand this topic? and what is your perspective on it? And I think that's how you break down those walls of communication and you start to make real difference around these issues. So before I wrap up this piece, any last question of the day moments, question of the day comments?
I got a comment in general. We're very active on social media, and anybody that wanted to chime in, get some comments in, start a conversation, you can reach us on Twitter at Ideas for Youth. That Ideas, the number 4 Youth. And you can reach us on Facebook for the Alliance for Positive Youth Development. And we're also on Google Plus and LinkedIn. And join our group, be our friend, follow us, and let's get the conversation going and get all your friends involved.
So thanks, Christian. The hashtag for the conference is APYDCON, and so please follow the hashtag. You'll see us live tweeting from the workshops and from these hangouts to tell you a little bit more about what's going to be happening throughout the day and to see the kind of key things that the speakers will be sharing with you. If you'd like to respond to the question of the day, let me open my iPad real quick. I'll just repeat it one last time. Considering today's political climate, is it more important to surround yourself with those who think like you and build strength in numbers, or to reach out to befriend those with views in opposition to you? You can respond on Twitter. Just make sure you include the hashtag APYDCon, or you can respond on Google Plus underneath this Google Hangout on our page, which you can find through the Sister Group page and on YouTube. Again, I'd like to thank all of the planning team. Our interns were split into committees, so you've heard from pretty much all of the members of the Youth for Change committee today, but Christian is part of marketing and registration, so he and his peers have been working on all of the items related to sharing information about the conference. And then we also have a committee that works on presenters and workshops that have designed the 6 workshops that will be taking place over the next 3 days. So for today at 1:00 p.m. Eastern, we have our first workshop, which will be led by Andrea Levant, who is with Girl Scouts, the National Capital Region. She will be talking about including all youth, ensuring inclusion of youth with disabilities in your program, which I think is so important because so often young people who have diverse abilities are not able to participate in programs, not because they don't want to or don't have an interest, but the program has not made the accommodations to make it possible. And we really should be thinking about that as we're trying to serve young people of all ages. So this is going to be a great workshop. Again, that starts at 1 p.m. Eastern for this conference. If you miss any of the live events, everything's recorded and available to people who register for the full year. So you can catch up and get this information later. So if you're watching this video and you're inspired, let us know, and you can always get information at youthconference@sistygroup.org. Any last points from my team? All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you either in the presentations or in tomorrow's Hangout. Again, question of the day, considering today's political climate, is it more important to surround yourself with those who think like you and build strength in numbers, or reach out to befriend those with views in opposition to you? Please add to the comments. We look forward to seeing you later on today. Take care. Bye.